the true meaning of faith in God. There are moments when we stand in the night of our lives looking up at the endless sky and ask, where is God? Why does He remain silent when I'm suffering? Why hasn't my prayer been answered? In those moments, the question of faith becomes more profound than ever. For many, faith is just a vague concept, a word repeated in prayer, a tradition passed down from generation to generation. But true faith is not found in words or rituals. It is born in an encounter between the human soul and the Creator. Believing in God doesn't mean expecting Him to do everything we want. It means trusting Him even when we don't understand the road He's leading us on, like a child holding their father's hand in the dark, not knowing where they're being led, but feeling safe because love is guiding them. Scripture says, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can move mountains. Matthew 17:20. The mustard seed is tiny, almost invisible, yet it carries unstoppable life. Likewise, true faith doesn't boast or demand proof. It's humble, quiet, and steady, yet it can move the mountains inside the human heart. Some say, I'll believe when I see a miracle. But Jesus said the opposite. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. John 20:29. Faith is not the result of seeing. It is the light that helps us walk even when we see nothing at all. Faith is that gentle voice within the storm of doubt, the warmth that keeps the soul from freezing in fear. Faith is kneeling in tears and still whispering, Lord, I know you are here. When everything collapses, when human promises fail, faith is what helps us rise again. Not because faith removes pain, but because it transforms the way we see pain, from resentment to surrender, from fear to peace, from weakness to strength. In the end, faith is a journey of returning to yourself and to God. It's not an agreement of the mind, but a surrender of the heart. True faith doesn't come from having answers. It comes from the presence, from realizing that even when we don't understand, God is still with us. Number 1, faith is not blindness. There's a difference between believing in God and merely believing that He exists. One is a relationship, the other is an idea. Many people think faith means closing your eyes and ignoring reality, but true faith is not blind. It is seeing more clearly than the world around you. Faith doesn't cancel reason, it gives reason its light. It doesn't silence the mind, it awakens the heart. To believe is not to abandon thinking, but to let love guide understanding. Abraham didn't blindly obey when God asked him to leave everything behind. He trusted because he knew God's voice, the same voice that had once called him out of barrenness and into promise. It wasn't a leap into darkness, but a step into light that only faith could see. Blind belief is built on fear, fear of punishment, fear of uncertainty, fear of being wrong. But faith born of love walks in trust, even when it doesn't have all the answers. It's the quiet courage to say, Lord, I don't see the way, but I will still follow you. True faith doesn't ask us to stop questioning. It invites us to go deeper, beyond the surface of doubt, into the mystery of divine purpose. God never asked us to shut our eyes. He asked us to open them wider, to see the unseen, to believe that His plan is bigger than what we can understand. The world calls it foolishness. Heaven calls it wisdom. For what seems unreasonable to human logic often carries eternal truth. It takes more strength to trust than to control. It takes more wisdom to surrender than to argue. Faith is not blindness. It is sight restored. When the blind man opened his eyes and saw Jesus, it wasn't just physical vision he received. It was spiritual clarity. He saw what many with perfect eyes still failed to see, the presence of God standing right before them. So no, faith is not the absence of reason. It is reason redeemed by love. It is the eye of the soul learning to see through fog, through fear, through the unknown, and finding that the light has been there all along. Number 2, faith and trials. Every faith must be tested, not to destroy it, but to prove what it's made of. Just as gold is refined by fire, faith is purified through trials. God doesn't test us to find out who we are. He already knows. He allows the fire so we can see who we are in Him. There are moments when heaven seems silent, when prayers feel unanswered, and hope fades into the shadows. We cry out, "Lord, where are you?" And yet it is in those very moments of silence that faith is born, not broken. When we can no longer rely on what we see, we learn to trust what we know, that God is still good, even when life is not. Trials do not mean God has left us. Sometimes, His greatest work is hidden in what feels like abandonment. The seed buried underground doesn't see the sun, but it is precisely there that new life begins. Our pain too becomes the soil where deeper faith takes root. Think of Job, stripped of everything, yet he said, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." That is faith beyond circumstance. It is the kind of faith that says, even if I lose it all, I will not lose my trust in God. God never promised a life without storms. He promised His presence in the midst of them. When Jesus slept in the boat while the waves raged, His disciples panicked. They thought He didn't care. But the truth was, He was teaching them that peace is not the absence of storms, it is the presence of faith. Every trial whispers a divine invitation. Will you still trust me now? Faith is not proven on the mountaintop. It's forged in the valley, in the silence, in the waiting. Sometimes the miracle is not that the storm ends, but that your heart stays calm while it rages. When you walk through fire and still love, still forgive, still believe, that's faith. When everything around you says give up, but your soul whispers, God is still here, that's faith. When you can't see the outcome but still take the next step, that's faith. And when the fire passes, you will not be the same. Your faith will not just survive, it will shine. Because in every trial, something holy happens. The false falls away, and what's real remains, Christ in you, the hope of glory. Number 3, faith produces action. Faith is not just what we believe, it's how we live. Words alone don't prove faith. Actions do. The Bible says, faith without works is dead. James 2:26. Because real faith doesn't sit still. It moves. It serves. It loves. When faith is alive, it changes how we treat people, how we forgive, how we respond when life hurts. It gives courage to do what fear says is impossible. It lifts us from comfort into calling. The Samaritan didn't just feel compassion, he acted. He crossed the road, poured oil on wounds, and paid the price for a stranger's healing. That is faith in motion. Because love without action is only sentiment, and belief without obedience is only talk. Faith doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Peter didn't walk on calm waters. He stepped out while the storm was still raging. That's the nature of faith. It moves even when logic says, stay. It dares to trust the invisible because it knows who is calling. Sometimes faith looks small, a quiet prayer, a simple kindness, a hand extended to someone forgotten. But heaven measures differently. God sees the courage it takes to forgive, the humility it takes to serve, the patience it takes to keep believing when no one else does. Faith is not proven by what we say on Sunday, but by what we do on Monday. It's shown in the choices we make when no one is watching, in how we love our enemies, help the broken, or stay honest when no one would blame us for giving up. When Jesus said, "Follow me," He wasn't asking for silent agreement. He was calling for movement. Faith walks, faith gives, faith forgives, faith builds when others destroy. It's the difference between saying I believe in love and living that love in every breath. The world doesn't need more people who talk about faith. It needs people who become faith, living reflections of God's grace. Because Because when faith takes action, mountains move, not just outside us, but inside our hearts. Number 4, faith brings peace in the storm. Life has storms that come without warning, the kind that shake everything we thought was stable. A doctor's report, a broken promise, a door that was supposed to open but slammed shut instead. And suddenly, the calm turns to chaos. We all have those moments when fear rises like waves, when even prayer feels like shouting into the wind. But it's there, right in the middle of the storm, that faith becomes more than a word. When Jesus and his disciples were crossing the sea, a great storm arose. The boat was filling with water, and the disciples cried out, "Lord, don't you care that we're drowning?" But Jesus stood, looked at the chaos around him, and simply said, "Peace, be still." And the wind obeyed. The lesson wasn't just that he could calm the sea. It was that he could calm their hearts. Because the true miracle of faith isn't the absence of storms, but the presence of peace while they rage. Faith doesn't always make the storm disappear. Sometimes it makes you stronger than the storm. It anchors your soul when everything else is drifting. It teaches you to breathe when the air feels thin, to trust when the future feels uncertain, and to rest when fear says you can't. Peace isn't found when life is perfect. It's found when your heart whispers, "Even now, God is with me." The world's peace depends on circumstances. God's peace depends on relationship. That's why Paul could sing in prison, why Daniel could sleep in the lion's den, and why you can still smile in the middle of your storm. Faith is not denial. It doesn't ignore the wind or pretend the waves aren't real. It simply chooses to look at the one who walks on them. It remembers that the same Jesus who commands the storm is also inside your boat. So when life roars and the night feels endless, don't fight the storm. Rest in the presence of the one who still says, "Peace, be still." Because peace isn't found when the wind stops. It's found when your heart knows who controls the wind. Number 5, faith is a journey, not a destination. Faith is not a place we arrive at. It's a road we walk every single day. It's not something we master once. It's something we grow into, through doubt, through pain, through grace. Some think faith means never questioning, never feeling afraid, never stumbling. But the truth is, faith matures through questions and strengthens through struggle. Even the apostles, those who walked beside Jesus, had moments of doubt. Thomas needed to touch his wounds before he could believe. Peter, who once walked on water, later sank in fear. Yet Jesus didn't condemn them. He met them where they were and said, "Peace be with you." That's what faith really is. Not perfection, but progress. Not standing tall, but getting up again and again, knowing that grace is greater than failure. Faith is not built on mountaintops alone. It grows in valleys, in waiting rooms, in heartbreaks, in the silence that tests your patience. Sometimes the greatest faith is not found in bold declarations, but in quiet perseverance, the daily yes when no one is watching. As we walk, our faith changes shape. It starts as belief, simple, childlike, innocent. Then life happens, and belief becomes tested, refined, purified. Eventually it becomes trust, deeper, quieter, more unshakable. Because the longer you walk with God, the more you realize that even when you don't understand His plan, you can still trust His heart. There will be seasons when the path feels long, when prayers seem unanswered, when you wonder if you've taken a wrong turn. But faith whispers, keep walking. Because the God who started this journey with you is the same one waiting for you at the end. Every step, every tear, every question is part of the journey. And one day, when you look back, you'll see that even in your weakest moments, He was carrying you all along. Faith isn't a finish line. It's a lifetime of footsteps, each one drawing you closer to the heart of God. Number 6, conclusion. True faith is communion with God. In the end, faith is not about believing something. It's about trusting someone. It's not a theory, not a system, not even a feeling. Faith is a relationship, a living connection between the soul and its creator. To believe in God is not merely to admit that He exists. Even the wind exists, and we do not see it. But faith goes beyond acknowledgement. It is abiding in Him, resting in His love when nothing makes sense, and walking with Him even when the road disappears beneath your feet. True faith is not built on miracles, though miracles may come. It is built on intimacy, the quiet knowing that God is with me, not just on the mountaintop, but in the valley. Not just in joy, but in tears. Not just when the light shines, but when darkness surrounds. When you truly walk with God, faith becomes less about asking for things, and more about becoming one with His will. It changes from "Lord, give me what I want," to "Lord, make me what you desire." And in that surrender, peace flows, a peace that the world cannot give or take away. This is the mystery of faith. It begins as a question and ends as communion. It begins with searching for answers and ends with resting in presence. In the stillness of prayer, when words fade and the heart listens, faith becomes worship. Not the kind that demands, but the kind that adores. It no longer strives to control life, but trusts the one who holds life itself. So let your faith not just believe about God, but live with God. Let every breath become a prayer, every act of love a reflection of His heart. Because in the end, faith is not a ladder reaching upward, but a bridge from the finite heart of man to the infinite love of God. And across that bridge, Christ stands, arms open wide, not asking for perfection, only trust. He doesn't say, "Understand everything." He simply says, "Follow me." That is faith. That is communion. That is peace.